All right. Let's get started. I love this slide. Says gratitude to me, but also big gratitude to Alex, who put together the slide deck and made sure that the content was right and combined several different slide decks. So Alex, thank you to you for all of this. For the benefit of our YouTube page, this is 100% legal information and not legal advice. And any questions you have about your own circumstances, I recommend you seek your own attorney to get legal advice. All right, Alex, let's get started. All right, so people who come to a name change clinic can come for a wide variety of reasons. The way that we change people's first names in North Carolina, or if they're changing their last name for any reason other than getting married or getting divorced, they go through Chapter 101 of our general statute, which has a very particular name change process. People go through that process for a lot of different reasons. The people that are coming to see us the name change clinic are likely doing it because they want a name that conforms to their gender identity. I changed my name for that reason. Changed it to Collins last year. I went through this process to conform to my gender identity. But other folks may be coming to us for other reasons. They may be coming to us because they want it to conform to their relationship structure. They may be unmarried but want to share a last name. Or they want to combine last names into a unique last name. Or maybe they have multiple partners and they all want to share a last name. Sometimes people come to these clinics because they were adopted and they want a name that corresponds with their biological family. Or on the converse, sometimes they have moved on from a relationship with their biological family and want a name that's different from that. So it's really important when you're meeting with the clients at the name change clinic that you find out why are they there? What are they looking to do? We can assume that a lot of the people are there because they're transgender and are wanting a name that conforms with their gender identity. But y'all know what happens when you make assumptions or when you assume. And so we want to make sure that we ask first why they're interested in changing their name, because it may be for something totally different. Reason on this list or something completely different. We go to the next slide, Alex. So I want to talk briefly about gender identity broadly. A point of reference for everybody on the call here. Hopefully this is old hat for a lot of y'all, but important to make sure that we're all working from the baseline. I am the area conversations about gender continue to change, continue to evolve. Every time we give this training, I feel like I learn something new from people who are at the training. So if I say anything that is incorrect, if I say anything that is outdated, I am here to learn as well, and I invite you to make sure that I am understanding where we're at in terms of gender as well as sex. So gender is a social construct. It is based on a set of expectations that are given to us by our society. There is nothing biological about why women are more expected to wear dresses than men are. It is what is made up in our society that defines who we see as a woman, who we see as a man, who we see as non-binary. It all is put on us from a social construct. Same thing with our body parts. We make expectations about what body parts people have based on their gender. Sometimes those expectations are right, sometimes they are wrong. But again, all that comes to us from what society says a certain gender's body parts should be. Uh, Sex itself is also a social construct. So every single one of us, when we were born, was given a sex on our birth certificate. For most of us, that was an M or an F. For some of us, it could have been an X if you live in certain states that give a neutral gender marker on your birth certificate. For most of us, we were given an M for male or an F for female. And for most of us, that letter ended up on our birth certificate, not because anybody asked us who we were, not because anybody checked our hormones or checked our chromosomes or anything else. They looked at what was between our legs on the day of our birth and decided if we were a male or if we were a female. For some of us, that may be correct. That is what we call cisgender, where the marker that you were given at your birth aligns with who you feel on your inside. Some people call this your gender identity, what you feel, your innate sense of being, is your gender identity. Other people call it your brain sex, because at the end of the day, the thing that most just defines what your sex is what's going on in your brain, that innate sense of self. And so for some people, what they got on their birth certificate, we'll say an M, aligns closely with what their gender is. If their gender is man, their gender is male, then we call that cisgender. If it's different, if that person with the M on their birth certificate innately knows that they're a female, or that they're non-binary, or that they're genderqueer, or that they're agender, that person falls under a big umbrella called transgender. That means the sex that they were assigned at birth does not align with the gender that they innately experience, their brain sex. Alex, will you do our next slide? So the gender unicorn, I think, is a really cute cartoon to explain in broad terms the differences among gender identity or brain sex, gender expression, the sex you were assigned at birth, as well as sexual orientation, which is who you're physically attracted to, who you're emotionally attracted to. So your gender identity I talked about. This is your innate sense of self. Who do you feel like? This is not made up. This is not a social construct. This is true. And every single one of us has a gender identity. And what I love about the gender unicorn is that it gives you these spectrums. And I invite you to think about what your gender identity is. Are you at 0% woman? Or are you all the way at the other side of the end where you are 100% woman? And if you're 100% woman, do you also have maybe 30% man in there? Do you also have maybe 60% non-binary? So think about all the different genders that you know and where you fall on a scale of your own understanding. What makes the most sense to you and what you're experiencing internally, regardless of what society says about it. Your gender expression, so your gender identity is what's going on in your head. Your gender expression is what you put on your body. How feminine, how masculine, how androgynous, how anything else do you express your gender? Somebody's gender expression can be 100% feminine and they can be a boy. Their gender identity can be gender expression can be 100% masculine and their gender identity can be non-binary. So your gender identity and your gender expression do not correspond necessarily. So what that means is that when we see somebody and they, in our opinion, look very feminine, they are expressing femininity. They are wearing a dress. They're wearing a lot of makeup. They're wearing heels. It is tempting to assume that that person identifies as a woman, but they may not. They may identify as a man. They may identify as non-binary. They can be genderqueer. There's all sorts of different gender identities that person who expresses gender in a very feminine way actually is. Sometimes people express their gender differently depending on who they're around. They may express their gender more femininely at work, but more masculinely at home or with their friends. That could be because of safety. That could be because of the job that they have. There are a lot of different reasons why people change their gender expression. Sometimes they do it just for fun. Sometimes people like to express femininely one day, excuse me, masculinely the next day, because that's what feels good for them. There's no wrong way to express a gender, but the important part is that it doesn't necessarily correspond to gender identity. And so I encourage you or maybe discourage you from making assumptions about what somebody's gender identity is based on how they're dressed. Sex assigned at birth, we talked about. This is what you get on your birth certificate when the doctor looks at you and says, you are man, you are M, you are F. And sometimes, like I said, you may get an X if the sex that you were assigned at birth is intersex. Intersex is another one of those umbrella terms like transgender that encompasses a whole lot of different ways that sex characteristics may show up. Different chromosome structures that show different hormone levels. But it all is again an umbrella term to describe different people who their sexual expression, the sexual characteristics that they have, may be different from what appears between their legs at birth. The last two, physical attraction, emotional attraction, these are your sexual orientation. Anybody of any gender identity, of any sex assigned at birth, can be physically attracted to any other gender identity, or all gender identities, or no gender identities. And same thing with emotional attraction. And so again, I encourage you to think about who are you physically attracted to? Who are you emotionally attracted to? Are your physical attractions and your emotional attractions aligned? But all of those, your physical attraction and your emotional attraction, are not your gender identity. Your gender identity, again, is what gender you feel in as an innate sense of self, 100% based on your experiences on the inside, not what sex you're assigned at birth, not your gender expression, not how people look at you, not your physical attraction or emotional attraction, who you are innately. Next slide, please. All right, so here's some good lingo to know. Encourage you, if you don't frequently interact with transgender people, to spend some time learning some lingo, and more importantly, learning not what to say. When we talk about people being transgender, it is an adjective. It is not a noun. It is not a verb. It is an adjective that describes a person. So we use that person is transgender, not that they are a transgender. Or you can use shorthand and say trans. AFAB and AMAB are assigned female at birth and assigned male at birth. For a long time, we used to say FTM and MTF, meaning female to male and male to female. Some people still use those terms as shorthand to say I was assigned female at birth, but now I understand that I'm a man. Some people reject those terms. So if you're working with a client and they say FTM or MTF, and that's their experience, don't correct them. That's their experience. Other clients may say AFAB, AMAB, assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth. Don't correct them. That's their experience. And that's the biggest thing. If you take away nothing else here, whatever anybody says to you as how they identify or the terms that they use, that's their experience and they're in charge of their experience. This is more general terms of things that you should say versus things you shouldn't say most of the time. Non-binary, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, agender, the list goes on, fall under the transgender umbrella. They are neither man nor woman. And there are, I mean, arguably as many genders as there are humans in society, but we all kind of fall in this spectrum, maybe a spider web of different sorts of genders. And so for shorthand, people use terms to describe their understanding of their innate sense of self, which could be non-binary, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, or a bunch of other things. Things not to say. Most of the time, you should not use it as a pronoun. If somebody tells you their pronouns, they could be she, could be he, could be they, could be some neo-pronouns like Z, or something like that. But most of the time, you should not refer to somebody who you don't know what their pronouns are as it. With that said, there are some people who have who use it as their pronoun. So if you meet somebody and you say, "Hey, my name's Collins, my pronouns are he, him," and they say, "Hi, my name's Alex, my pronouns are it, it's," those are their pronouns. Those are its pronouns. You should use it for that person. I make a practice of if I don't know somebody's pronouns, I use they, try to use they for them until I know better. But once you know better, once you know somebody's pronouns, whether because they tell it to you or because you know somebody who knows them and they use their pronouns, use that person's pronouns that you now know. Don't continue to just use they or another shorthand and find out that you're wrong. Same thing with transsexual. That's another one of those words that you shouldn't use it on a regular basis. But there are some people who that's their gender. They say I'm transsexual. And if they say that they're transsexual, don't correct them. Use that word for them. But it is generally speaking a word that people find offensive. And so it's not a word that you should just use for anybody that is transgender. But if there's somebody who says, I am transsexual, that's their experience, and that's what you should use with that person. All right, Alex, next slide, please. All right, so transitioning. I don't love the word transitioning, but it is the word that we use in our society. This is a process where somebody says, I was assigned female at birth. I am not a woman. I am going to take steps to disassociate from being assigned female at birth. Every person who transitions is going to transition differently. It is a very individualized experience. Some people, when they are taking these steps, and when we say there's not prescribed steps. It's not like you have to do this, 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 and this, and you're on this escalator and you've got to go up no matter what. You can skip steps, do different steps, do them out of order, do whatever you want when you're transitioning that eventually gets you to a place where you say, okay, I feel comfortable in my body and my sense of self. I like where I'm at, and then transitioning stops. So for some people, it may be as simple as saying, all right, I'm not a female. I'm not a woman. That's what I was assigned at birth. I know that I am not that. That's all I need. All I need is for myself to understand that's not who I am. And I'm good. I don't need to do anything else. That is that person's complete transition. They did not do it wrong. It is not incomplete. That person has transitioned. For other people, it involves a lot more stuff. It can involve taking hormones or having a surgery. It can involve telling their friends, hey, use different pronouns for me. It can be getting involved in a hobby like fly fishing that is more masculine to them, that makes them feel like their gender. It can be changing their clothes. It can be changing the way that they talk. It can be doing voice therapy. Whole lot of different stuff that people can do to feel like themselves and feel like they have done what they need to do to present their gender. Sometimes that includes legal work, and that is what we are doing by helping them change their name so that on all of their government identification documents, it'll say the name that they go by, the name that they want, the name that affirms their gender. This is a big deal, y'all, to be a part of somebody's transition journey, to be able to say, hey, this is really important to you. This is really important for you to live your life in the way that makes sense to you, that makes you feel good, that makes you feel whole, that makes you feel authentic. And one step that you've decided you need in order to feel whole is to legally change your name. And I'm going to help you with that. This is a big deal that y'all are doing for trans people. And that's really cool. And it makes me really excited that y'all are here doing that, or will be doing it this weekend. So it's important that you take that with a ton of respect, that you are involved in someone's transition. And that is really important to them. And I'm glad that y'all are here to help. All right, next slide, Alex. All right, so what people are experiencing. This is, again, people are going to be at all different stages of a transition. Some of them may be just for the first time feeling comfortable saying, hey, I'm not a man. I was assigned male at birth, but I'm not a man. Some people may be going through counseling. Some people may be presenting in their gender expression that makes sense for them. Some people may be on hormones. They could be all over the place. I want to emphasize again, when a client comes up to you and they are dressed in a certain way, or they are talking in a certain way, or their voice sounds a certain way, or their hair, or their mannerisms, whatever it is, do not assume you know what their pronouns are, you know what their gender is, you know what their sex assigned at birth was, nothing. Make no assumptions about this person, because everybody who is coming to us is coming to us in a different stage, and they're the expert of their experience. So whatever pronouns they tell you, use them. Whatever name they tell you, use it. Wherever they're at in their experience, that's where they're at, and that's where we're gonna move. Okay. Next slide, Alex. All right, names and pronouns. We talked about this some. It is really, really important to get somebody's pronouns correctly. Frank, I'm gonna pick on you briefly. I see that your pronouns are he, him, and your tagline on your Zoom. It would be very disorienting for Frank if when he went to class every single one of his professors said she. Every time they talked about Frank, oh, she was such a great student in my class, and I really liked having her in class. It would be extremely disorienting for Frank, for everybody to call him with she or pronouns. Those are not his pronouns. So same thing with our clients. If you meet a client and they say my pronouns are they, them, then those are the pronouns we are using for that person. Those are their pronouns. And we want them to feel not disoriented. We want them to feel good, feel seen, to feel heard. If they use pronouns like z, zir, or other pronouns you've never heard of before, it is okay to say, oh, I've never used those pronouns before. Can you help me? And then write down what they tell you. And then do it, follow it, call them by the pronouns they give you, get it right. The biggest thing is to, instead of trying to think about every time, okay, remember Frank uses he, him pronouns, Frank uses he, him pronouns, Frank uses he, him pronouns. Don't do that. Remember who this person is. Think about these pronouns as an expression of their gender identity. And remember that. Oh, Frank, I'm making an assumption here, Frank, but hopefully I'm going to get it right. Frank's a guy, and I'm going to use the pronouns for God, he, him. And that's how you associate that in your brain. So when you're working with your client, get it in your brain immediately and continue to use their pronouns correctly. If you get it wrong, do not flagellate yourself in public. If you get it wrong, say I'm sorry. Treat it like you kicked somebody under the table hard, because that's what you did. You did something that hurt, but you can't really fix it by saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I really messed it up. I'm going to get it right next time. I'm so sorry. What you're doing when you do that is you're making this about your experience. And now they feel really uncomfortable, and they're probably going to do the nice thing and say, oh, yeah, it's no big deal. It's okay. It is a big deal, and it is not okay that you got their pronouns incorrect. No matter what they tell you, it is not okay. It is a big deal. So you need to make sure you get their pronouns right. But if you get them wrong, which happens, I've done it before. I may do it on Saturday. Like, it happens. Just say you're sorry. Say, catch yourself and say, oh, I'm sorry, she. Oh, I'm sorry, he. Or if you call them by the wrong name, if you're like helping them with their working on their name change pleadings, and you say, you find out what their birth name is, and you're just typing away, and you're not thinking at all, and you call them by their birth name, not by the name that they told you. Catch yourself, apologize briefly, get it right the next time. If you're working with a partner and your partner gets it wrong, and you notice that your partner gets it wrong, correct your partner right then. If they're going along, blah, 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 I was working with Alex and she, say thank you. If someone corrects you, say thank you. What they have done is done you a huge favor that is going to make you a better attorney. That's going to make you better at helping this community. So say thank you, and then get it right the next time. All right. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk about the name change process. It is long, it is complicated, it is confusing. I will be there, and other attorneys will be there to help you along the way. We use a really cool software that the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts has put together that hopefully, knock on wood, makes it pretty simple for you to help people through this process. But I want to give you the big overview of how it works, what we're doing, so that you can have a working knowledge about what's going on. This is what you're going to be helping people with during the clinic. And so when you're meeting with your client, first, number one, find out what their name is, what their pronouns are, find out why they want to change their name. And then you are going to explain to them what I'm about to explain to you, the whole process. So the goal of going through the legal name change process is to get what I call the golden ticket. You're trying to get a court order that says your name used to be whatever name you're given at birth, and now your name is the name that you have always wanted, or want name. So that's what you're getting, is a court order. And this court order you take with you anywhere and everywhere to update your name. So think about all the places that you have your name. You got it on your driver's license, you got it on your birth certificate, you got it on your social security card, you got it on your passport, you got it on your bank accounts, credit cards, you got it on your car title, your mortgage, or your lease. You got your name, you got it. You're gonna have your name on it with the North Carolina bar. Your name is recorded everywhere. So this name change order, again, this is what I call it the golden ticket, is what you carry with you to get your name updated anywhere it is recorded. It is a court order. It is good in all 50 states to get this corrected for you. So that's the goal. That is what we're doing here, is to help them get that court order. Now, again, this is different than what happens when you get married. If any of y'all have gotten married, all you do is sign the little marriage certificate, say, I want to change my name, and done. It's done. Takes no time at all. We got to go through a lot more work if you want to change your name for this chapter 101. You got to prepare, you got to get background checks, you got to post a notice that tells the world that you want to change your name. You got to file a petition and a bunch of affidavits, and then you got to hope that the clerk gives you the name change that you do. So that's the overview. It is a lot more complicated than just changing your name when you get married. All right, next slide, Alex. So, let's say, yeah, I said you had to file your petition. A petition, for those of y'all who don't know, is how you ask the court to do something. So in your civil procedure class, you probably learned about a complaint, right? You file the complaint, you're saying, I got this grievance. A petition is not a grievance. There's nobody on the other side of the V. It's not a plaintiff and a defendant in a name change petition. This is it's called a special proceedings. And so there's not an adverse party. It is just asking the government to issue an order. So you have your petition. And along with your petition, you have to give them both a state Bureau of Investigation background check and a federal Bureau of Investigation background check. The petition I mentioned. You have to have 2 affidavits of good character. You have to have an affidavit that you sign that has that talks about your outstanding tax and child support obligations. You've got to have a certified or an original copy of your birth certificate. You've got to prove your identification. So that means like a driver's license or your passport. Most of the time you have to prove where you live. So showing your name and your current address. So like a phone bill or a cable bill or a bank statement, something like that. And then you've got to pay a filing fee. A filing fee is $120 just to ask if you can have a new name. Not even to guarantee that you're going to get your name updated. All right, Alex, next slide, please. So to get your background checks, you start by getting your fingerprints done. So you go to a local sheriff's office to get this done. You have to get 2 different sets of fingerprints done. One is for you to submit to the State Bureau of Investigation for a background check. The other one is to get a background check for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The fingerprints, most of the offices now you do them electronically, so you don't have to like roll your fingers in ink. But you do have to go to a sheriff's office. That can be intimidating for some folks. The transgender community has not had a lot of good experiences with law enforcement, and there are every year it seems like deaths of trans people from police brutality. And so sometimes this can be an intimidating experience for people to go to the local sheriff's office. Unfortunately, there aren't a whole lot of other places to get fingerprints done. Sometimes college campuses are able to do them there, have more liberal law enforcement officers there. But at the end of the day, they have to have these things to get the background checks, or they're not going to be able to change their name. Next slide, please, Alex. All right, so the federal background check that you get, we have a website listed. We can share this presentation with you so you can, if they want to go to the website and look at the forms, you can go ahead and go to this website with them. It's a really short form. It can be done online, and actually that is probably the fastest way right now is to fill out the form online, and then you just mail in the fingerprint cards along with like a receipt that you get by filling it out online. You can also do a paper copy where you print it out, send it with your fingerprints off to the FBI, or you can hire a processor who can do it for you to kind of like walk it through the whole process for you. That is the most expensive option, but right now the online way is pretty quick. The background checks, they do expire. And so when a client gets their background checks back, it'll have a date that it was processed, usually like 3 or 4 days before they actually get it back. That date is starts and there's 90 days from that date to file the petition, or else their background checks expire. The background checks expire. It's not the end of the world, but it does mean they have to do it again because they gotta get new fingerprints, gotta fill out a new form, gotta pay more money. They gotta go do it again. So not the end of the world, but for people that are this is a significant expense for them, that can make this process harder for them to get done. So make sure that the clients who come see us know that they've got a clock that starts with their background checks. So no need to send off for background checks until you are really ready to start the process. All right, so that's the federal one. Alice, you go to the next one for the state. The state background check is a very similar process. You fill out a form, it gives you an address to send it to. Unfortunately, the state of North Carolina doesn't accept things electronically, so you have to fill it out on your computer, then print it out, send it, put it in an envelope with your fingerprint cards and a check, and mail that off to the state Bureau of Investigation. Not a hard process. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to get those back. They come back to you in a hard copy again. And so that, and it also has a date on it. So whichever date is first, whether the federal Bureau of Investigation date is first or the state one, you want to use the earlier of the 2 dates to count your 90 days moving forward. Because if you don't, then one of them is going to expire before the other one does. So it's really important that you pay attention to the earlier of the 2 dates and count 90 days forward from that. And that's when you got your petition to be filed. No hate in filing it really early because you don't want your background checks to expire. And mailing off your fingerprint cards, both to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the State Bureau of Investigation, do not bend them. Make sure the clients know not to bend their cards, or else they're going to send it back, and then they got to go through the whole process again, get new fingerprints, send it back off. Hopefully they won't make them pay again, but sometimes they do. So again, make sure they don't bend their fingerprint cards. They need to send it in one of the big envelopes. All right, next slide. The purpose of the background checks is because in North Carolina, there is one very clear, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, prohibition for changing your name. And that is if you have to be registered as a sex offender in North Carolina. People who have to be registered as a sex offender in North Carolina cannot change their name. And so it's important that your clients know that, because if that applies to them, they're not gonna be able to follow this process. The reason being is that North Carolina has a very vested interest in keeping tabs of who needs to be registered as a sex offender, and so they won't allow them to change their name to avoid registry on a sex offender registry. Any other crime that is in someone's background is not supposed to be a prohibition for them to change their name. Now, not supposed to be, and what actually happens in reality is sometimes different. I have had clients who have criminal history, who have gotten held up because of their criminal history. Not anything having to do with sex offenses. They had like an arson charge. And so the clerk denied their name change because they had this criminal background. That really hurt, because that is not what the statute is supposed to work. It's only supposed to limit sex offenders, not anybody else that has a criminal background. But just because it's how it's supposed to work doesn't mean it is. And so again, it's important that clients know that if they say they've got a criminal background that's any different than just a traffic ticket, it may be worth you raising your hand, asking me to come over, and I can explain to them what that means and what hangups they may run into. All right, next slide. All right, so we got our background checks. We have a certified copy of our birth certificate. I recommend that clients go ahead and get that before they send off for their background checks. I think New Hampshire, like there was a wait of over a year for birth certificates for a while. So make sure that they have a certified copy of their birth certificate, because it would suck if they sent off their background checks, got them back, and then we're waiting on their birth certificate, 90 days pass. They finally get their birth certificate back, and now they got to go get new background checks because they expired. So I recommend people get their birth certificate before they go get their background checks, just to make sure they don't run into that problem. All right, so we got our background checks, we got our birth certificate. Next step is posting a notice of your intent to change your name. This comes from days gone by where we used to get all of our information about what's going on in our community from the courthouse. There are, in every courthouse, there is a literal bulletin board where people post things like notices of foreclosure and tax liens and things like that. And the name change notice goes up there. I don't know anybody who ever checks that bulletin board unless they're going there to look for name changes, notices of tax liens, foreclosures, those sorts of things. I'm sure in Danielle's practice, she has to check the board or has a paralegal check the board sometimes for things that are related to estates. But the general public doesn't really look at that board anymore. That's not a part of our society. I don't know if any of y'all have ever looked at that board. But this is still a requirement in the statute that we post this notice. And it has to be posted for 10 calendar days. So the weekends count in that 10 days. And then after the 10th day is passed, so on day 11, they can go file their petition. To go post this notice, you go up to the clerk's desk, you say, hey, I gotta post this notice. They will either take it from you and post it for you, or they will tell you, go right over there and take a thumbtack and stick it in the bulletin board. That's what I had to do in Guilford County, was they just told me, let's just right over there. And so you post your notice. Everybody has to do this unless you meet one of the few limited statutory reasons why you don't have to. This is mostly for people that have security concerns. People who have who are survivors of domestic violence, stalking, harassment, or who are part of the address confidentiality program. If that applies to them and they don't want to post a notice, we recommend that they get an attorney to help them, because you have to be able to prove that this applies to you. Unfortunately, if you're a survivor of domestic violence, but you never filed for a protective order, never brought a lawsuit, no criminal charges ever came of it, then you may not be able to bypass the notice requirement if you can't prove that this is something that happened to you. So again, we recommend people have an attorney. We also recommend that they get their notice stamped by the clerk of court with a date on it, so they can say, okay, well, I posted this on January 16th, 2024. It says here, right here, the clerk's office signed it for me. It is now January 27th of 2004. I can file my petition. You have proof, right? You have proof that 10 days has passed. All right, Alex, next slide, please. All right, so now that we got our notice posted, we got our background checks, we've got our birth certificate, all in a nice pile. We gotta go get the rest of our stuff. This is what we're helping people type up while they are in our clinic. You're helping them fill out the forms, all of these forms that they've got to bring with them with their petition. So the first form is the petition. The petition says that what you want to change your name from and to. It has information about your parents, what's on your birth certificate, your date of birth, where you were born, your reason for wanting to change your name. Your reason can be as vague or as specific as makes sense for you, but that is true. And so for some people, they really, really, really want to put, I want to change my name because I am transgender. Great. More power to you. Make sure they know that this is a public record. And so while unlikely, it is conceivable that anybody in the world could go ask for their name change order and go find out that the reason they put is that they're transgender. They may be perfectly fine with that. They may not want that at all. And so it's important to let them know that. They also may want to consider what county they live in. Guilford County, pretty liberal place. Not a lot of transphobia in the clerk's office. Other counties may not be as liberal and may experience transphobia in the clerk's office. And so they may not want to put the reason they want to change their name is because they're transgender. But they've got to put a true reason. So if it's a name they've been going by for a while, they can put, because this is the name by which I'm known in my community. If it's because they don't identify with their birth name, they can say, well, I don't identify with my birth name, I identify with this name. So you can say different things that are true as reasons why somebody may want to change their name that doesn't say, in bright marquee lights because I'm transgender. I say it's got to be true because you've got to verify the petition. You have to swear or affirm that the contents of the petition are true. So it's really important that it's true. It also goes in the petition that you have never changed your name under Chapter 101 before. So it's fine if they change their name by divorce or by marriage. You can do that as, I mean, I don't know, as many times as you're divorced or married, dozens of times. But you can only change your name through Chapter 101 once. And that's important. Make sure they know that this is the name that they are choosing for life. Now, with that said, I believe that that requirement that they only, or that limitation, they can only change their name once, is unconstitutional. I have argued as such to Superior Court judges and have fortunately won every time that I've made that argument that not being allowed to change your name more than once is unconstitutional. But if they have changed their name before through this process, not by divorce and marriage, but through Chapter 101, again, we recommend they have an attorney to help them through that because it does require them to make constitutional arguments about why that requirement is unconstitutional. No Court of Appeals judge has said it yet, unfortunately, so we have to continue to make the arguments. But we're pretty successful in that. But again, it's important to let them know, hey, there's these arguments out here, but you need to be good and sure this is what you want your name to be. Because regardless of that, right now the statute says you can only change it once. All right, so along with your petition, you also have to have affidavits of good character. These affidavits are very simple. They just say, hey, I've known this person for X number of years, and I know them to be a good character in their community. Period. End of story. They don't say why. They don't say, well, because they volunteer at name change clinics and they always do their reading on time and they're always prepared for cold calls and they also volunteer at these other clinics. Like it doesn't just say anything about why this person has good character. It just has to say that they do. And so they can choose anybody they would like that can make that attestation to say, yep, I know them. They are a good character. But the person has to be over the age of 18. They gotta be an adult. They have to live in the same county where they're filing their petition. The petition has to be filed in the same county where they live. So I live in Greensboro. I have to file my petition in Guilford County. So everybody who's gonna be an affidavit or witness of good character for me also has to live in Guilford. All right, so over age 18, live in the same county, cannot be related to them by blood or by marriage. And they most clerks require them to have known this person for 6 months or more. So for some people who've just moved here, that can be a problem. Some people don't feel comfortable outing themselves as transgender to people they just met. And so they may have a hard time thinking about who they want to be their witnesses of the character. But again, this is a requirement. They've got to find people that have two different people. Now, the two people can be related to each other or live in the same house as each other, but they can't be related to the petitioner, the person who's trying to get their name changed. Along with the petition, you also have to have a sworn statement by the petitioner, the person trying to get their name changed. That statement has to say what their tax obligations are and what their child support obligations are. So for most people, they can just say, I don't have any tax obligation or outstanding tax obligations or child support. Great. We love that. That doesn't mean like we all have tax obligations because we live in America and that's part of the bargain we pay for the government to do what the government. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, are they delinquent in their taxes? Have they failed to pay taxes? Do they have outstanding taxes that are due to the IRS? They need to say that. They need to testify in their sworn statement that that's what's going on. And then same thing with child support. If they have child support obligations, they need to say that. The government, for some reason, has decided those are the two most important things that somebody may try to get out of by changing their name. And so we're going to make people swear that what their status is on those. So again, when you're filling this out, it's just important to let them know this is what they're asking for. We need to tell the truth. If they do have like outstanding tax obligations, the clerk's office may require them to show that they have an agreement with the IRS to pay them back, that they are timely paying the IRS back, something like that. The same thing with child support, showing they're timely paying it. But again, these are not things that are supposed to prohibit somebody from changing their name, even if they have outstanding tax obligations. They're not supposed to be prohibited from changing their name for these reasons. But they might be, because things don't always work the way they're supposed to. Like I said, we got a certified copy of our birth certificate, results of our background checks. There is a order that you will be helping them complete that says, decrees that their name was once this and now is that. Make sure you get the spelling correct on this, right? If you only get to change your name once and you whiff on spelling it correctly in your name change order, well, you are now you're now court ordered that your name is spelled incorrectly for the rest of your life. So have them check, double check, triple check that their name is spelled the way they want it spelled. And then lastly, they have to pay $120. There is a form that you'll have the opportunity to help them fill out that asks not to have to pay the $120. It's called a petition to file as an indigent, meaning somebody who doesn't have income or enough income for this. There are different ways people can prove that. If they want to go through that process, I'm happy to walk with you to walk them through it. But a lot of times people don't have an issue paying $120. All right, next slide, Alex. Oh, I talked about all of this before. Okay. This is the description for the name change petition that I talked about. Again, the biggest thing is the reason. We want to make sure that they feel good about the reason, that it is true, that it is not for a fraudulent purpose. The court will 100% deny it if they say I want to change my name to try to evade arrest. And they need to make sure that they're comfortable with it being in the public record, whatever it is that they put. All right, next slide, Alex. Affidavit's a good character we talked about. Sworn statement of the individual we talked about. And then anything else. So the clerk's office can ask for anything else. So like I said, if they have like outstanding tax obligations, the clerk office may ask them for proof that they're making payments on time. The clerk's office has a lot of discretion to ask for anything else. And so what I advise people to do is to call the clerk's office in advance before they walk all the way down there with their petition and everything and say, hey, I want to make sure I have everything I need. Here's what I have. Is there anything else you need from me? The clerk's office hopefully will say, no, that's everything. I'm good. They may tell you, oh, actually, we need you to do this, this, or this. Good to know in advance. They may find out later. In the petition, put their phone number on there. The reason for that is so the clerk's office can contact them if they run into a problem. So they can say, oh, hey, will you come back in? Your affidavit of good character is actually file with somebody who lives in Forsyth County, not Guilford County. We need you to get a different one. And they'll allow you to fix it instead of having to start the whole process over. So it's important they put their phone number on a petition so the clerk's office can get in touch with them. All right, next slide. All right, so once we've done all that, we wait. And we wait a week, 10 days usually to get these done. Sometimes they can go longer, sometimes they can be done immediately. The clerk will sign the order. The order will either say your name change is granted or your name change is denied. Your name change is granted, fantastic. Get several, I recommend 3, certified copies of your name change order to take with you to the driver's license office, social security office, passport office, birth certificate, or to get it updated everywhere that it is recorded. If it is denied, that is not the end of the world. If it is denied, the clerk has to say why. It could be, like I said, pretty simple, that you forgot a form. It could be that you have a criminal record. If it is denied, the person has 30 days to appeal the denial to a judge. So the first eyes on this is the clerk. And the clerk makes the first decision, grant or deny. It's granted, great, we're done. If it is denied, then you can go in front of a judge. So they need to file their intent to appeal, There's particular statutory language for that. And they need to do it within 30 days. So again, I recommend that if somebody has to appeal something to get an attorney for that. Because at that point, we're usually making arguments about the requirements of the statute, and it's good to have that legal background to make these arguments. But they could do it per se if they prefer. All right, next slide. So this is the website that we're going to be using to help people go through the name change process. The website is so easy to use. We will be there to walk you through it. I recommend that you try it out before you come just to make sure you understand it. But at the end of the day, you're just like, it asks you questions like, what's this person's first name, middle name, last name? Type it in as you go. When you're done, you click some buttons and out pops all of the forms that these people, all the petition, the affidavits, the verification page, the order, the notice, all that stuff. It generates all those documents for you, so you're not having to do it by yourself, remember all the different things. It does it for you. So we will help you along the way if you run into any issues, but it's really easy. So with that said, bring your computer with you on Saturday because you're going to need it to use the guided file. So make sure you bring your computer with some sort of charging cable so that we can use the guided file for helping people get these documents done. All right, next slide, please. So big picture, they're going to create a login. Make sure they create the login because they will be able to access the documents later. Sometimes you may be able to walking along and they're like, oh, I don't know the address for one of my witnesses. Let's skip that part. So great, we can skip it. We can go on to the next thing, but they're going to need to fill that in later. And so make sure they have a login with a passport, with a password so that they can access these documents later, fill them in, whatever's incomplete, and get them printed out. If they complete everything, I think we'll have a printer with us so they can print them out while they're already here. All right, next slide, please. So once you get your name change order, you go about changing your name everywhere else. Birth certificate in North Carolina is a matter of mailing a form to the North Carolina Vital Records Department, paying some money, and you will get a new birth certificate. When you're doing that, you can also update your gender marker if that's something that's important to them. It's really easy to do now in North Carolina to get a gender marker that is correct. You just need an attestation by some healthcare provider that says, yep, that person is a male or that person is a female. Really simple. Again, there's a form online to get those things updated. If that's something that somebody's interested in, give me a shout. I can help you find the form on the internet. That's how you do it in North Carolina. So only people who are born in North Carolina can follow that process. It's listed on the screen. If they're born in Alabama or Georgia or Colorado or California or Russia, there's going to be a different process. And if they are born anywhere else and they're interested in learning about that process, let me know. I can come over and get you to the right place to show them how they'll update their birth certificate wherever they were originally born. So that's what they got to get. Like if they're born in New Hampshire, they got to update their birth certificate for New Hampshire, not for North Carolina. All right, next slide, Alex. Social Security card. I recommend you go to the Social Security office because you're going to need original documents like your passport or something like that to prove who you are. And you're going to need the SS5 form, which you can download off the internet. It is a pretty simple process. You just show up one day and they process you through like you're at the DMV. You can also update your gender marker there as well. Right now, when I say right now, under the Biden administration, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need a doctor's note like you do for your birth certificate. You can do a self-attestation that says, I'm a man or I'm a woman and I want an M or an F on my reported in Social Security. That's it. You don't have to have any evidence of anything. That could change though under the next administration. It could. So that's what it is right now, but the federal government has the ability to change that with every president. All right, next slide, please, Alex. North Carolina driver's license. The driver's license is really simple too. There's a form online. You bring a copy of your new social security card and your court order name change to the DMV office, and you pay for a new ID. If they want to change their gender marker on their driver's license, you do something really similar for the birth certificate. There's a form on the DMV website that you fill out, that you get your doctor to fill out, or another healthcare provider to fill out, that says, yep, this person is a man, or yep, this person is a woman. Please give them the corresponding gender marker. So again, not too hard to get those for anybody, a little bit more work than social security card, but not astronomically difficult to get your gender marker updated, along with your name change. As a caveat, I recommend if someone's like, well, I really want to get this done for my driver's license, my gender marker change, wait until you're done with your name change, or else you're buying 2 new driver's licenses instead of just one. So if they can wait a little bit longer before they get that done, I recommend that they wait till they get their name change order to do along with the gender marker change, so they only have to pay for 1 new driver's license. All right, Alex, next slide. Other places, passports, your wills, your school, all the different places your name is recorded, you've got to update as you go. I had my name changed in June. I am still doing this because it is everywhere. And so I just carry a copy of my name change order in the car with me and give it to people as I run into them. So going to the bank, I like brought it in and said, hey, you update my records. Went to the dentist, hey, you update my records. And I've had no issues getting them to update it, but it is just a pain in the butt taking it everywhere. Passport, it works pretty similarly to Social Security office, except you have to mail it in. But there's a form online, you follow the form online with a certified copy of your name change order. And if you want to change your gender marker on your passport, it's like Social Security, it's a self-attestation. Hey, I'm a man, hey, I'm a woman, whatever it is. And you just say what you want on your passport, you don't approve anything. That's under the Biden administration. That can change if the administration changes in the next election. Also on your passport, you can get an X gender marker. Well, there are many states that are allowing that on birth certificates and driver's licenses as well. Not North Carolina, but many states. And passports, you can get an X gender marker. X can mean X is none of your business. X can mean undisclosed, or it can mean X as in like non-binary. So if somebody wants to not have an N or an F on their passport, they do have an option. But it is important for them to consider where they may be traveling with that X gender marker. There are places where it may not be safe for them to be out as non-binary, or people expect them to have a binary gender marker on their passport. I'm not telling people how to live their life, but it is something that they should consider is this going to put me at risk in the future? So it's something important for them to consider. Next slide, please, Alex. We just talked about that as we went along. That's the websites that you'll need for the gender marker changes. All right, so best practices when you're meeting clients, we talked about these. Make sure you share your pronouns and ask how they want to be called, what they want to be called, their name or their pronouns. And don't make assumptions about people. If they come in and they're wearing a dress and they are wearing makeup and they have a deep voice and they have a beard, don't assume they're a man. Don't assume they use he/him pronouns. Don't assume they're a woman. Do not assume they use she/her pronouns. Ask them. Find out and then use whatever they tell you as their name and their pronouns. It is so important you get it right. Remember, again, you are an important, a critical, a crucial piece in the people who are coming in to see us in their transition journeys. And we don't want a critical, crucial piece of their transition journey to be a story about this one time somebody kept messing up their pronouns when they're trying to get their name changed. So make sure you get it right. It is so important, especially, I mean, all the time important, but especially as part of their transition there. All right, next slide, please. Client counseling tips. Y'all are going to be working with clients. I will be around, but I'm not going to be over your shoulder 100% of the time. So when you meet them like you meet anybody else. Don't be weird. Tell them what your name is. Ask them why they're here. Ask them how their day's been going. Make sure you tell them that you're a law student, if you are. Make sure you tell them that you're providing them legal information, not legal advice. Make sure you tell them you're being supervised by practicing attorneys. And if they have any questions that they need answered, practicing attorneys, me included, will answer their questions for them. And then you need to raise your hand and ask us to come over and answer their questions. Don't make things up. Don't get things wrong. Do not be afraid to ask. That is why we are here, so that you are not practicing law and that they are getting good information. After you break the ice, get to know them a little bit, explain the process. I like to start explaining the golden ticket, right? This is the whole point of the process, is to get this order. Tell them what an order is. Tell them what an order does. Y'all are law students, but 6 months ago, y'all probably didn't know what an order was. They don't, right? Most people don't know. And so go slow, allow them to ask questions and explain the process, and figure out what they need. Make sure they know that you're going to keep their information confidential. People are going to be sharing with you vulnerable things, right? Just the fact that they're trans is a vulnerable thing in today's climate. But make sure they know that you are going to keep things confidential, and then do so, please. It is important that you maintain your professional standards of confidentiality in working with clients. All right, so then you are going to walk through the guide and file process with them if that's what they want. Some people may say, hey, I just wanted to learn about the process. I'm really early in this. Still trying to decide if I even want to do it. Cool. Talk about the process. Explain it to them. If they say, I'm good, I'm out of here. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. If they say, all right, yeah, I would love for you to help me fill out the forms to complete my legal name change, that's when you dive into the guide and file process and walk through with them. Make sure that you are following what they want though. And then last thing, you will, wherever they leave, we have a take home gift. It's not a gift, it's like a packet that explains this is what you do next. And so you'll give that to them so that they know, okay, this is where I'm at in the process, and this is what I need to do next. I would go over it with them, explain to them what they do after this. So for a lot of people, it'll be, okay, you need to go get these things signed and notarized and file them, those sorts of things. So go through it with them. Again, if there are any questions with what to do next, where they are, pop your hand up. An attorney will be over to help you explain anything you don't know, or if you don't remember something or anything like that. We also make sure you have a partner. So hopefully it works out on Saturday that there are people who are brand new at this and people who have done one or two of these together, so that y'all can be a good team and work together and through this client counseling part of it. All right, next slide. Listen, do not do what I've done this whole presentation. Listen, don't control the conversation. Make sure you're understanding. Paraphrase what they said to you. Oh, okay, I understand you want to change your name because you're transgender. And they say, oh, actually, no, it's because I want to make sure that my spouse and I have the same last name. Whatever it is. Give them the opportunity to correct you. Use those good active listening skills. Sit up straight, have good posture, look professional. You are a lawyer in their eyes. No, you're not yet. Make sure you tell them, but you are there as the professional, the legal professional there. Look like it. Dress the part. I will be in jeans, a shirt, a blazer, maybe a tie, maybe not. But like, look clean, look professional. You don't need to wear a full suit. And if you want to. But look put together like you're ready to meet with a client. Maintain eye contact. Use that good nodding. And don't interrupt the client. Let them tell you their story. Let them explain to you why. Just let them talk. It'll help build comfort. People love to talk about themselves. Don't interrupt them. Be aware of your own biases, your prejudices. If you feel something coming up, check yourself before you wreck yourself. This is the time for you to be as empathetic as you have ever been. Is important. I like to think about this, that as an attorney, the word attorney comes from the old French word attorney, which means to turn over to. And that's what people do when they come see attorneys. They turn over their problems to us. And so it is really important that we are good stewards of that stress, good stewards of this problem on our own, and we treat people the way that we would want to be treated in that situation. A time when it is confusing, a time when they're vulnerable, an important, exciting time in their journey. So take it seriously, and make sure that you are there, with all of your best foot forward. All right, Alex, next slide, please. All right, so this is important for you to know as your future lawyers. We are working with these clients without running conflict checks. So that means, you'll learn in your ethics classes, that when you, have a client, you can't have a client as adverse to another client, except for in limited situations. That's called a conflict. We are not running conflict checks on any of this. And so I am able to provide advice even if they are adverse to my clients, because this has nothing to do with whatever they've got going on with my clients. So we're following our professional rules of conduct to a T. The NCBF does a really good job making sure that we have a form that they will sign before we work with them, to inform them that we are not running conflicts for them, and that we're serving them under Rule 6.5. So that's real ethics lesson for the day. Alex, next slide, please. All right, does anybody have any questions? And Alex, we can turn the recording off so people feel free to ask questions if they have any.